Hi. I'm going to show you a cue today from Season 3, Episode 1. What I like about this one and what I want to talk about is cue entry points. I watch a lot of TV and I watch how a lot of composers come in and leave, and I think it's not all that great a lot of the time. I think it's just not... It's hard to time, and sometimes a producer will say you gotta come in here, you gotta come in here, and that doesn't give you any leeway to move things around and to experiment. And again, just to stick with my philosophy of everything that you see on screen has to be provoked. There can't be any superfluous, unnecessary music. You have to strip it down to the absolute bare functionality that it can be, just before it falls apart from being too simple. Do I believe that? Most of the time I believe that. But in this scene, an interaction of dialogue between Mac and Jeff here. Jeff, the actor that plays him, I think he's really fantastic, the way he's able to, I'd say, really dramatically shift his countenance. So in watching this scene through, you gotta watch kind of his composure, watch, what he's saying, the jokes, he's being an asshole, there he is. And you're looking for this moment, it's like, okay, when do I come in? Because when you enter, what you want to do, I think you want to come in, I would call it a soft entrance. And what that means is your brain can't process a lot of things at the same time. It can subconsciously, but consciously, what you're drawing into your attention here is his performance pulls you in, and when I'm watching this, it's like, okay, there's my moment to sneak in. Now, just to critique my own work, I think I came in at the right moment. I think as this mix stands, which is not the final mix in the show, I got too loud too fast, and had I eased it in more, I think it would have been more impactful. So I'm going to pre-roll this a little bit with the dialogue.
Hey, man, only speak and laugh about it.
Just some banter.
I don't want anything to do with this.
Then watch for the moment his countenance shifts and listen to the music.
You're the one that wanted to talk.
There it is.
I wanted you to know that I remember things that I didn't tell you about.
So if this was mixed and I can't get that loud, you'll
You're
hear...
the one that wanted to talk. I wanted you to know that I remember things that I didn't tell your boy upstairs about.
I guess that's okay. That'd be mixed fine. With the dialogue up.
Just itty bitty pieces percolating like the morning after the night you've been drinking. Well, you know more about that than I would, but it'll come to me. It will.
So, a couple things happen there. You can see the absolute simplicity and subtlety. You can hear the rise in the music.
Well, you know more about that than I would, but it'll come to me. It will.
Right there, so it's simple, just narrating and gesturing. You have to imagine a narrator's voice saying, and then Jeff pulled back after, that's what the music's doing, but musically. So I'm just doing a couple cello parts here. Now, for this next transition, one thing I'll show you here, this cello part's kind of cool. I really like this plugin. I'm using Soothe again, which is fantastic. But I like this one because I can change the character and the sonority. And this is not, it's just a pretty, it's not a great cello part. But it's my cello part. So all I did there to compare, it's subtle, but it adds to the strangeness of the sound, and that's what I wanted, is something that sounds like a cello, but it's not your classical cello. It sounds like it's distorted, and I've pulled the formant down, and formant is just kind of like lowering of the timbre of it. So if you imagine like a high formant is the same pitch, but if you squeeze your throat, it raises it. So just to give an example there. And then low format just makes things like as if you had a, I don't know. I'm not going to explain that because I don't know how. But this next scene leads into a transition, and transitions, I think, are key and critical because they push or pull on the momentum. They can make time feel different. And in this case, what I wanted to do is to draw you in, build you up, and then pull right back, because what happens in the past dramatically affects what you do next. So it's all about knowing what and when. So in this case, it's appropriate to throw that in musically.
Yeah, and then the only thing that you need to...
And then a little wash.
Yeah, and then the only thing that you need to make it happen from
Now it pulls right back.
Food just rises up.
And then we have this entry point on Carly's reaction.
You know?
We're introducing some pace, which the scene hasn't had yet. So it feels like you can feel the shift. This is going somewhere. And then the percussion pre-cuts. Shift to Jeff there.
Wait, who? Can't say who.
So a couple of things happen here.
Footprints. That's it?
There's a cello part that's going through there. And it's lang. And it's doubling. And some pads. So all in all, not a ton going on, but another moment. I mean, well, let's just talk again about the entry point there. So we made a hole and then we came back in, but we didn't come back in hard and forcefully. It's like, yes, there's tempo and pace, and now we have time occurring in movement. But you can see it's not like boom, it's really provoked by her reaction. So she stumbles a little bit and starts to slow down, but you can see the moment that I chose to come in is kind of in between, so blop blop. So as her feet cease to be rhythmic, the rhythm brings it up.
Nothing out here?
Yeah, let's sit back.
And kept it really simple, but it's all in time with the frames and cuts and stuff. And then the little percussion prelapse. What that does is without that, goes on a bit too long. Nothing's happening, but so that's without it. But then when you put something that simple just with the accents on there, we're watching Trevor now. We're drawn into him. He's like, oh, what's going on? So that brings us nicely into the next cut. So that's a good way to play transition. Again, it draws you in and it doesn't draw a ton of attention to itself. And this next moment, I like to use filtering a lot. I think filtering and automating filters is like, I don't know, it's my thing. I like using hardware filters. I really like the electron analog heat, and I used to have one just sitting right in front of me, and all my synths would patch through it, and I would just use that as my master filter. I stopped doing that because I moved my studio around and I plugged it back in. I miss it. But this moment, so what we have here is just scanning through. It's like, oh, there's Jeff. What happens on scene, if you just watch this kind of without sound. So camera motion, so it goes kind of into slow motion. There's a weird thing. It's a cool scene. So if you just go through it and nothing happens, it doesn't have much meaning. So a couple things that I did here is I have it build up into that, and then it pulls it right back. Everything washes out. It kind of filters down, and then it washes back in, and it goes to the end. And there's a couple interesting things on the shifts that are happening here. I'll just play through it once, and then I'll ramble endlessly about it. It's right there. is those little moments. I said I'd play through that whole cue. I'm sorry I didn't. I'll do it later. Like this shit, like a super filtered, washed out kind of thing. It sounds neat. And there's just those little, like those parts really complement each other. And then up and out. And then the unfiltered percussion's back. So that's almost a rhythmic motif. You can see I've probably very lazily copied and pasted it throughout. And then, because of what's happening here, you know, we're getting to some big director shit. That's the end titles motif. And I like to use that a lot whenever I can, combined with the main title theme, which I'll show you how I've applied that in some later videos. But ins and outs. That's the big thing. There's an element of an out that propels momentum, and then there's the importance and the subtlety in a lot of cases of the in, and that's hard. That's hard because you can either come in strong when there's a hard cut, but when it's something subtle like this, you gotta find those moments and you gotta make sure they're provoked, and you have to think very very consciously about what's gonna draw a viewer in versus what's going to pull them out and make them notice the music too much. Like if I just start fucking doing some energy shit here or something. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I did that. Either way, it's not right, but you know, you don't want to step on dialogue, so something like this textural pad stuff, which is why I really like using the cello and pads for a lot of these things. And then that's just pushing this out. A little reverse. But as you can see, it's all very simple. It's not trying to draw a ton of attention to itself, and it's just functional and effective. It's subliminal, but it still has its own voice, and it's woven so tightly into the picture. And that's, I mean, to me, that's the essence of a good score for whatever it is. It's really tightly woven. It really sort of outlines the narrative and the dynamic. And if you were to look at this on like just a graph of dynamics of energy, you'd see it go up, you'd see it go down, you'd see it go up really big, down, and then back up and then out. And if you look at what's occurring on picture, that's the same thing that's happening. You have to follow that dynamic and that framework. And there's methods where you can just outline it, like you can map out tempo shifts and feel shifts, and you can use markers and structure everything to know exactly what the scene needs, and then you just kind of fill the music in after. So there's a couple different approaches. I kind of freeballed it. I don't use templates. Everything I do, I kind of just make shit up. I use a lot of analog synths. That's kind of what drives the sound of the show, because I think they have just a real nice functional sound. And obviously a lot of instruments. I use the cello a lot in the show. Brad really likes it. I wish I didn't play that part. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of, I'll probably go more in depth about ins and outs, but that's just kind of what one cue I think does effectively. And yeah, does a good job of it. So thank you for watching.